Welcome to Liverpool City Region Creating Careers. We're joined today on this webinar with Lewis Blundell, software developer from the Walton Centre. Hi, Lewis.
Hi, right.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today. And I know that you're going to talk to us around IT and what that means in terms of having a job within the sector and working with the NHS this morning. So yeah, really pleased to have you here with us. We're looking forward to an informative session with you, and students should have completed their pre-work for this seminar. And no doubt there'll be some interesting questions for the Q&A session at the end. Students, please use the Q&A button that you'll see at the bottom of your screen to post any questions that you've got for Lewis. And we're going to actually host a Q&A session at the end. I think we're going to run the video, which is going to showcase Paul Carney, who's an IT project coordinator who actually works at the Walton as part of the IT team along with Lewis.
My name's Paul. I'm project coordinator here at the Walton Centre.
And Paul, what does your role entail then?
So I work with a team of developers, and there's 4 members of the team, and I work with 2 project managers. So just a bit of background of what we do on a day-to-day basis. So I will meet up with staff around the trust, and basically if they have like a paper form that they'll complete for patients, that ends up in case notes such as observations, risk assessments, I will meet up with the staff and basically come up with a plan of how we will introduce that to digital.
So you're basically taking things that are paper-based and digitising them so that records are easier to access in the future? That's
correct. So especially given the current climate of coronavirus, you know, we haven't had the best of years, but with staff gaining access to the medical records, you know, having paper records within a set of case notes, of course, brings up a lot of problems. So having that ability to access patients' records, patients' observations, having that on a computer is perfect.
So tell me a bit about how you came into this role. What did you have to do to end up working in IT in the NHS?
Sure, so I'll take a bit of a step back. I went to sixth form in All Saints in Kirby, and I enrolled in the Careers Academy, and this was basically a bit of exposure into working life and bridging that gap from education into real working life. So I worked in the summer holidays, and then I ended up completing that 6 weeks internship, and then basically got me foot in the door, which got me into an interview for a level 2 apprenticeship into IT. For the first 12 months it was great, good exposure into what I'll be doing on a day-to-day basis, learning about how the trust works, and it's really good.
And that was here at the Walton Centre, was it?
That's correct. So following the 12 months, I enrolled into my level 3 apprenticeship. So I was gradually climbing up the ladder and finding a lot of skills, interpersonal skills about myself and how to grow as an individual coming into work, because as I say, you know, it is a big step up from education into real working life, so it was really good exposure.
And what would you say is the role of IT, of what you do, and how it feeds into the NHS? How important is it to have IT in the NHS?
I think it's very, very important. I can't advocate it enough how big IT is in the NHS. As we all know, you know, moving forward, digital is, you know, the required solution, and you know, having the ability, as I was saying before, to access patient records from anywhere, either that be at home or while you're on site, is so important. We talk about, you know, patient alerts through our systems. So in our system EP2, we have a lot of alerts that will let staff know that they need to check patient observations, if another risk assessment needs completing. You know, they have that basically a voice there to tell them to say, this is going to help with the patient care.
So what would you say to young people who are thinking of getting into IT and getting into the NHS?
I would definitely say go for it. You know, there's a lot of good challenges within IT. It's interesting, it's always developing and growing. You've got opportunities that are so vast within IT, especially with myself being in the project management side. It's great seeing a piece of work that is paper and turning into electronic, and seeing that the pleasure that it brings to staff, because you know that access and quickness is very important to staff.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through a little bit of a Q&A session with Lewis. So we've got a few questions that have actually come in from the students today. So Lewis, I think you're there.
Yeah, I'm here.
You're right.
All right.
So first question that we've been asked is that what is Lewis's career path into getting into the job that he's doing now, and is it similar to the way that Paul actually started at the Walton Centre?
So yeah, it's a little bit similar, but I did a slightly different route. So I went to university first, and did my 3 years as a student for web design and development, and then I came to the Walton Centre on like a placement year for like 1 year, so maybe to learn how things are done in industry. And then whilst I was there, they offered me the full-time job after I'd done that year, because they knew like I could do the stuff and I knew more about the systems than them getting someone else in. So that's sort of how my career progressed.
Great. And then the next question says, is what is the most satisfying part of your job?
It's similar to what Paul said in that video, really. When you get given your specification, which is the information you need to make like a feature, you sort of see it developing as you're creating it. And then when you get to the final stage of it being released so people can use it, when people are using it and you see it's working fine, that sort of gives you like a good sense of like accomplishment that you've done something good.
Yeah. And does that sort of feed through in terms of, obviously, that they're, at the end of the day, you're actually supporting the patients, they're actually coming into the Walton Centre?
Yeah, so a lot of the features we do is to improve patient care. So by making things digital, we can improve it by putting certain steps in place and making sure things get done correctly and to the best standard possibly, really.
Yeah. There's one question that I'm going to ask all of our participants this week, really, in our Creating Careers. I suppose looking at when you were at school, and obviously for a lot of our students who are currently there now, how did your learning in school help you with your career today? So was there a specific subject that you obviously enjoyed and that brought you into IT, or was there a specific skill that you learnt while you was at school that sort of helped you to develop your career?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I pretty much stuck with IT related. Like, so for my GCSEs, I did things like business, media, and IT.
Yeah.
So they sort of gave me like an introduction into what IT is really used for, and then it just sort of carried on from that through college and then through to university.
And what courses at college might help you sort of get into an IT role, or specifically into the NHS?
So at the college I went to, you could do either IT or computing, which I did both of them. So IT was more business related, how you'd use it in a non-developer way. So things like Microsoft Word, Excel, and all that stuff. But then computing's more what's behind the scenes, like how a computer actually works, how things are made, and how computers connect to each other and stuff.
Yeah.
So it sort of covered both areas of IT, really.
And then I noticed that on the video that Paul talked around, obviously working with a team of 4. So you're obviously one of those 4 software developers. So just talk to our students a little bit about what that's like to work in a team, and maybe when you first went to work at the Walton, how did you find that integration into maybe a team that was already set up, and what that felt like for you, I suppose, when you first started in that role?
Yeah, so when I first started, I started at a student level. Because there's people with like different experience and different levels. And the good thing about working in a team is you can learn from each other. So coming from a university background, they try and teach the most up-to-date technologies, and it's more theory-based. And then when you go into an industry, into a role, you learn from like experienced members of the team. So they will show you how they do things, how they've been doing it for years. but then you can also share with them what you've learned through university. So you learn both ways, really.
And what roles could you progress into after this your current role that you're doing as a software developer?
So the way development sort of works is you sort of like build on your role. So you start as like a student or a junior, then you go into a full-time developer, then you get like a senior role, which is you get more of like a management sort of role. So you start overseeing projects more instead of just being given tasks. You do those tasks and basically develop.
And is that something that you're looking forward to? And is that what you've sort of, your career aspirations are sort of taking you down that route?
Yeah, because you get included in like decisions on what technologies to use. So you get to stay a bit more up to date. And there's a lot of different ways you can do things. So it gives you a bit more variety of what you want to work on.
Yeah. And I've just got another question in, which says, what skills do you need to do the job that you actually do?
So obviously IT skills help, but the main skill really is problem solving. So you'll be given a task, or there might be an issue with the system, and you've just got to look at it and break it down into little steps to try and figure out what's the best way to correct it or go about it. And once you start getting that mentality, it becomes quite easy because you start thinking outside the box a lot more and everything just flows a lot easier. So problem solving is probably the best skill you can have for it.
And while you were thinking about doing IT, and obviously you studied that through school and obviously continued that on, was the NHS somewhere that you thought about working in IT, or initially was you just sort of thinking about, you know, like working inside an IT company? Because I think what we're trying to do again is to give students the information around, you know, in certain jobs you can actually work in a lot of different sectors and a lot of different organisations.
Yeah, so originally I hadn't even thought about the NHS, but once the opportunity came up, I thought it'd be a good idea since everyone knows about the NHS. It's a very solid, big company, so there'll be a lot of opportunities within it to like learn and grow.
Yeah. And what about when you was at school? Did you take any work experience placements or get an opportunity to sort of go and look at what it would mean to work in IT within an organisation at all?
Not through school, I didn't know, but I did the odd little bits of volunteering just so I could like familiarise myself with what actually goes on in IT companies.
Yeah. And did you find that beneficial?
Yeah, it was, because there's a lot of things with computers that you don't see when you're going through school. So like learning how people set up like networks and how computers are set up really to work the best way possible.
And do you think by having that experience, I suppose doing that little bit of research, did that help you in terms of maybe when you came to look for a job, the opportunity at the Walton Centre, did that help you in terms of maybe your interview and maybe being able to put your CV together in terms of that experience?
Yeah, it sort of gives you confidence that what you know is actually relevant to that job role. So when you're applying, you know that you do have an understanding, and if someone asks you about it, you can, no matter how much information you know about it, you can, you know, like add to what they're saying and, you know, provide more information that you know a little bit about it.
Yeah, yeah. So I've got a question that somebody's just sent in around obviously the COVID situation that we're all currently living and working through. So is there anything specifically regarding COVID that has actually changed your role and maybe your day-to-day routine? And I think maybe looking at it, maybe you're not maybe in the office today. So
yeah, so when COVID came about, we all had to start working from home. And the good thing about my job role is you can do it from pretty much anywhere. As long as you've got like a laptop and internet connection, you sit in a cafe or sit at home. So my job currently now is permanently work from home, so Monday to Friday, which it does make it a lot easier. It gives you a bit more time because there's no traveling to and from work, and you can sort of make it a little bit more flexible with your hours. So that changed quite a lot. But then communication changed a lot as well. So we're having a lot more meetings just to see how everyone's working, how people are doing and stuff. So it pretty much worked for the better.
Good. I think everybody's in a lot of different circumstances to
Yeah.
what we're all used to working in. So if you could give any advice about how to get a job like yours, what would that advice be?
Don't be afraid of just going for any type of job, because when you start, you'll start at roughly like a junior level and they expect you not to know a lot. So don't be worried about, oh, I might not know or might not be as good as what I think I am, because you learn so much on the job than what you do in like school. So when I went to university, I learned all the theory, but then I didn't quite understand how to implement that. But then once you go into a job role, you just start learning it all and it all just clicks.
Yeah.
So there's no like, don't worry about experience at the start, really.
And how have you found the integration into the team? I know Paul mentioned in his video that obviously he works with the team of 4, there's 4 of you, but sort of how big is the IT team at the Walton in terms of what you deliver?
It is quite big because we've got several teams. So there's like Paul said, there's the project managers, but then we've also got like the system architecture team, which deal with network and hooking up users and servers and things. But then we also have our clinical systems team who, if users are having an issue with one of our systems, they ring up, they answer the phone, and then they help deal with them. But then we've also got, outside of our department, there's another team called information. And they basically work with us to provide information to users who need like data gathering or something. So if they need to know how many forms have been filled out on a certain patient, information will come to us and then we work with them to find out what they need in that report.
Yeah. So it's quite a changing role in terms of what you're delivering and lots of different things going on.
Yeah, depending on what the task is or the scenario, your job can change quite a little bit.
Yeah, okay. So I think one final question for you today is, what would you say is the most satisfying part of the job that you do?
Definitely seeing something that you've created being used by other people and working well. It's more knowing that what you're doing is being used by people and it's actually making an impact. So helping people complete their jobs to a better standard.
Oh, that's great. Just wanted to say, Lewis, thank you so much for joining us today. I think the Q&A session has been really worthwhile and hope that students will get a lot out from that. Students, don't forget to check out the Creating Careers roadmap to evaluate today's session. Please also go to our website where you'll find all of our employer videos, series on our YouTube channel and our the pre-work resources as well that we've completed for you. So if you go to www.growthplatform.org/talent/careers-hub/ or email any questions that you've got following this session to careershub@growthplatform.org. Thank you very much for joining us today.